Picture this. You sit down determined to study. You have books, notes, maybe a cup of coffee. You say to yourself, okay, this time I'm going to concentrate. But then your phone beeps. You look at it just for a moment. The moment becomes a minute, then 10. Next thing you know, an hour's gone by and you've hardly begun. Sound familiar? If you've been frustrated because no matter how hard you work, you just can't get better grades, take heart. The fact is, most students don't do poorly because they're not smart enough. Most fail because of poor study skills that they don't even know are holding them back. And unless you stop repeating those mistakes, they will hold you back as well, no matter how much effort you put in. But fear not, because that's precisely what we're going to fix today. I'm going to break down the 7 most frequent study errors students make and inform you on how to avoid them. These are the errors that quietly undermine your focus, waste your time, and make learning harder than it needs to be. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to change in order to begin seeing better results, without needing to spend hours upon hours studying in books. So, stay with us until the end, because this could completely transform the way you learn once and for all. Okay, let's get started. The very first error, procrastination. Now you're probably thinking, oh boy, I know procrastination is bad. But the reality is, do you even know why you procrastinate? Most students don't. You say to yourself, I'll get going in 5 minutes, but 5 minutes become an hour, then a day, then next thing you're cramming the night before a test, and you're feeling utterly overwhelmed. It's not cause you're lazy. It's because your brain is built to avoid pain. The moment learning becomes boring or difficult, your brain searches for something easier, scrolling through social media, YouTube, texting a friend, anything that appears more fun than learning. So how do you correct this? First, quit waiting to feel motivated. If you're waiting for the ideal moment when you're suddenly in the mood to study, you'll wait forever. Motivation follows starting, not the other way around. The trick? Try using the 2-minute rule. Say to yourself, I'm going to study just for 2 minutes. That's all. And once you get started, it will be that much easier to continue. And secondly, make it difficult to procrastinate. Leave your phone in a different room. Use site blockers, set a timer. Anything you need to do to be focused. Because the longer you delay, the more difficult. Now, let's talk about one more mistake that might be killing your productivity, and that's passive learning. You know what I'm talking about. Studying notes, highlighting textbooks, attending a lecture while half listening. It feels like you're learning, but in reality, you're not actually absorbing anything. Your brain isn't being engaged. It's just absorbing information without processing it. Consider the following. Let's say you want to get stronger. You go to the gym, grab a pair of dumbbells, and simply hold them. You don't lift them, you don't do reps, you just hold them. Will your muscles get stronger? Not a chance. Learning is the same. If you're reading information but not actually doing anything with it, you're not working out your brain. So how do you repair this? Active recall. Rather than reading over notes, shut your textbook and attempt to describe the subject aloud from memory. Rather than highlighting a section, rephrase it as a question and test yourself later. Studies demonstrate that testing yourself, even if you get it wrong, makes you recall much more than passive reading. And the best aspect? It actually saves time. Okay, now that we've covered a mistake students aren't even aware they're doing, multitasking. You may think you're quite good at it. Perhaps you're watching a lecture and texting back a friend, or reading while listening to lyrical music. But here's the thing, your brain is not multitasking compatible. Each time you task switch, your brain takes a little time to get back up to speed, and that time really does add up. Experiments show that multitasking actually cuts productivity by up to 40%. So what takes an hour takes nearly 2, simply because your brain is switching back and forth. So how do you repair it? Do one thing at a time. Use the Pomodoro technique. Study for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Keep your study area free from distraction. And if you really must have background noise, listen to instrumental music or white noise rather than music with lyrics. Because each time your brain switches between tasks, you're not only losing time, you're losing focus. Now that we've addressed these widespread errors, Let's talk about another enormous issue that most students don't even realize is damaging their performance. And that's poor sleep habits. You'll want to pull an all-nighter and cram, or tell yourself you can get by with less sleep and have more time to study. But here's the thing, your brain doesn't function that way. Sleep is not just sleeping. That is when your brain actually processes and retains information. If you're studying all night and you get just a couple of hours sleep, what occurs? Nothing you studied is going to remain with you really. It's like pouring water into a bottle when the bottle has a leak in the bottom. Nothing stays in. Consider those nights you've stayed up late studying for a test or doing an assignment. How did you feel the next day? Sluggish, sleepy, hard to focus, right? Sleep deprivation impacts your memory, focus, and capacity to make sound decisions. You're plodding along studying, but your brain just isn't absorbing it. So how do you repair it? First, quit making sleep optional. Try for 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, even if you're busy. Next, cut out phone use before bedtime. The blue light from your phone fools your brain into thinking that it's still daytime, and it'll be more difficult to fall asleep. Attempt to shut down screens at least 30 minutes before bedtime and use the time to unwind. Read, stretch, or prepare for the next day. And third, follow a schedule. Waking up and sleeping at the same time every day, yes, even on weekends, is what gets your body into a routine, which makes sleeping and waking up simpler. Now, let's talk about another colossal study fail: not taking breaks properly. You've probably been told by others, study hard, then take breaks. But most students either take too many breaks or take too few. Some people sit down, study for 10 minutes, and then take a 30-minute break scrolling through their phone. Others cram for hours straight, thinking more time equals better grades. Both are wrong. Your brain requires breaks, but must be in the correct form. That is where the Pomodoro technique is used: 25 minutes of studying, 5 minutes of break. Repeat for 4 sets, then take a longer break of 15 to 20 minutes. This method will keep your brain fresh and prevent burnout while keeping you productive. But here's the thing, your break has to actually be relaxing. Browsing TikTok for a few minutes? Not a break. Your brain's still taking a ton of info. Stand up, stretch, move around, or even just close your eyes for a moment instead. You'll come back to studying so much more focused. And then there's a mistake that most students are not even aware is sabotaging them: not having a study plan. Ever sat down, open your textbook, and just not knowing where to begin? You page through, skip from topic to topic, and the next thing you know, you've spent more time trying to figure out what to study than actually studying. That's because you don't have a system. If you don't make a plan, you'll never know what to do, and you'll be wasting time. What do you do then? Make a basic study timetable. List the subjects or topics you need to study. Divide them into bits that you can manage and allocate them to time periods. When you sit down to study, you shouldn't be asking yourself what you need to do. You should know. And a pro tip, do the toughest topics first. Your brain is most fresh in the morning, so do the tough subjects first when you have the most energy. Leave the easier ones for afterwards. This single trick could be a total game changer for how much you're actually going to retain. Now that we've reviewed these fundamental flaws, there is one other major thing that could be ruining your study habit, and that's passive studying. The majority of students believe that highlighting and reading is learning. You can read through your textbook, highlight a few important facts, and feel like you're getting somewhere. And then the test rolls around and your brain turns to mush. Ring a bell? Because passive learning doesn't cut it. Reading information doesn't necessarily equate to understanding it. Your brain must be actively engaged with the information in order to recall it. How do you change this then? First, get out of the habit of just reading. Begin questioning and describing what you read. Rather than just reading over your notes, attempt to teach the concept aloud as if you were going to teach it to a friend. This is called the Feynman technique. If you cannot explain it simply, then you really don't know it. If you get stuck, that's an indication you need to learn some more. Second, rather than reading your textbook again, utilize active recall. That is, quiz yourself instead of merely reading the answers. Close your book and attempt to recall major points. Make flashcards, practice problems, or Jot down what you do know without peeking. This compels your brain to actually create the information, thereby reinforcing your memory. And lastly, vary your study techniques. If you're only studying in one way, such as reading or watching videos, your brain isn't being stimulated enough. So instead, mix it up. Write it down, teach it to someone else, make diagrams, or make mind maps. The more techniques you use to interact with the information, the more you'll retain. Now, let's discuss something that is ruining your focus without you even knowing: multitasking. You may believe that you are able to listen to music, read messages, and study all at the same time. But the reality is, your brain can't multitask. Each time you switch tasks, you're making your brain restart and refocus. Even if it takes a second, all of those seconds add up. Research demonstrates that when you multitask, you spend more time completing tasks and make more errors. Try this. Have you ever tried reading a book and listening to song lyrics simultaneously? Hard, right? That is because your brain cannot fully focus on both. It is the same thing when you're studying and your phone keeps buzzing with incoming texts. So how do you repair this? Build a distraction-free learning space. Place your phone on Do Not Disturb or in a different room. If you must have music, listen to instrumental songs or white noise to keep your brain engaged. And above all, do one thing at a time. Commit yourself to 25 to 30 minutes of intense, uninterrupted focus before you allow yourself a brief break. You'll be amazed at how much more you accomplish. And last but not least, we need to discuss one of the greatest errors that keeps students behind: poor consistency. Most students only study when exams are near. They'll cram everything at the last minute, trying to learn weeks' worth of information in a single night. Learning doesn't work that way, though. Your brain needs time to absorb and retain information. That's why cramming is so stressful. You're trying to get too much information into your brain at one time, and most of it won't stick. The answer? Daily studying on a regular basis. Even 30 to 60 minutes per day is better than trying to cram in one session. By going over material on a daily basis, your brain continues to strengthen those pathways over time, so it's easier to remember when you need to. Here's a secret: use spaced repetition. Rather than trying to cover everything in a single session, space out your learning. Learn a topic today, then review it again after a day, then 3 days, then a week. This method has been scientifically proven to enhance memory recall and retention. And remember, small, consistent efforts add up. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be consistent. At the end of the day, streamlining your studying doesn't equate to working harder. It equates to working smarter. Even if you've made some of these mistakes in the past, it's never too late to change. Start implementing these tactics today, and you'll see concrete changes in your concentration, memory, and grades. If this worked for you, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more tips, and share this with a friend who needs it. And always remember, success is in your hands. Stay focused, keep learning, and never give up. You got this.